Hey, Tom and Wendy, I want to send you a little information about this idea that I have about a potential partnership between ECU and the university in Africa. And I thought I could just email this document, but it might be helpful if I explain a little bit of what I was thinking. And my dean is very, very interested in this, so we'll talk about that in just a second. But okay, so what I was thinking was that we would try to do a certificate, that we would offer this certificate. And the certificate in internationalization of counseling, or whatever you decide to call it, would include 3 weeks in country in Africa. Okay, so that would take care of that. Now we could change the amount of classes that were required. Typically, what's required for a certificate in the United States is 4 classes. Well, I mean, what you see in a lot of university systems is like a 4 class option, 4 classes, 3 semester hours each. And what I was thinking was, if we did the certificate, if we did it as a certificate, our students could count those. You would be able to recruit people who just wanted the certificate to add it on, and students who were currently in programs, master's programs or doctoral programs, they could transfer those hours in as elective hours. So I think that it would have a lot of utility that way. Um, but okay, so you got a couple of options. You could either have you could offer an online certificate hosted by a stateside institution, in this case, East Carolina, or you could have a certificate that's offered by the university in Malawi. And I've got an idea about how to do that. That's the option I would go for, this option. I think that this is the best option. It would help money pump through that university in Africa. It would make it possible for people from other countries to be able to afford to do it pretty easily. And we've got an option built in this way that would provide some protection for universities, uh, United States universities, domestic universities that we're going to send students there. I'll talk to you about that in just a minute. All right, so what you got to get to is you have to get to 150 contact hours, right, for it to count as a full graduate certificate. Now, I recognize that people from other countries may not have the same need for a graduate certificate in the same structure that we have, so we could play around with that a little bit. We could shorten it to 3 classes instead of 4 classes. If you did 3 classes instead of 4 classes, that I mean, I think that could be possible too. It would shift the contact hours, and so it would shift the hours that require the time required in country in Africa. So maybe 3 weeks is too long to require of people. I'm not sure. I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts about this. But what I'm trying to offer is an idea that our university could get behind and support, and serve as a stateside university partner for the university in Africa, um, to develop this and market it out, globally to professionals in counseling. So if you did it this way for the domestic side, like for our side, what would it need to look like? If we offered 3 classes through the university in Africa, the certificate is offered by the and granted, conferred by the university in Africa. But we have one of the classes that's part of the certificate program is offered by East Carolina University. We offer it as an online course so people can enroll in it anywhere. But uh, it would be set up as one of the regular, like, study abroad courses that are that have a different budgeting structure within the university. A study abroad course does, because they cover the cost of their travel within that course, and they cover some insurance that's required for students. So if you had one stateside standard study abroad course that is set up that would contribute to part of the certificate, then it would serve a few purposes. One is that it would allow the university to cover any liability needs that just standard liability issues with study abroad. Study abroad structures are very well. I mean, they've been in place for many, many years. A lot of things have been refined. Their processes are pretty clear. So if we set up one course that was a regular standard study abroad at a university here, and a lot of times they recruit students from other universities into those courses, so that would be pretty familiar as well. We had one course like that, and the credits for that, this is the part that would take negotiation between the two institutions to figure out how to transfer the credits from that study abroad into the certificate, or maybe the certificate. We have to figure that part out. That takes some negotiation. But they'd have the one course that's offered through East Carolina University. It would also allow the other purpose that it would serve, having that course, in addition to the liability and structural pieces that the university would need. It would allow faculty the opportunity to do some initial prep with students to prepare them for the transition to the in-country work in Africa. So the pre-course experience for study abroad research has indicated that that's pretty important. That preparing students beforehand, before they go to their embedded experience in the partner country, really matters to their success. It positively impacts their success. So it gives faculty an opportunity to lay that groundwork that's pretty necessary for students to be successful in the study abroad. And it would also provide an opportunity for collecting data, research data about the experience, right? So that class would be, since it's offered as an online course, it could start 2 weeks prior to departure, and then would include some closing components at the end too. All right. Then you have 3 weeks in country in Africa, where you would do these 3 classes. The 3 classes would be taught collaboratively with faculty from the university in Africa and faculty from whatever. It could be these the international faculty that would be on staff at the university or on the contracted with the university. However that process works, would also include a faculty member from East Carolina who would cover the initial course stuff and some collaborative work while they're there too. So you'd have a number of options for doing that. The courses could be focused on these topics. I think that these are a good place to start. I mean, these are just ideas. We had to have something to sketch out, you know. So the way the setup would work would be, like I said before, the pre-departure prep, 3 weeks. I'm gonna scan this up. Give me just a second. So the setup would be, online 2 weeks with the pre-departure prep, 3 weeks in country engaged in classroom lectures, community engagement, governmental meetings as appropriate, whatever we decide to work out there, service learning. All of this will be worked out between a team, probably me. The way I see this is I would be working with maybe someone from educational leadership too. If we could work with the faculty from university in Africa, then we could develop these courses so that they had the experiences that would be what we hope for them to have, and they meet some of the CACREP requirements, provide some cool options for students for engagement, and that would positively benefit the communities. We have a really strong focus on reciprocity. How we're positively benefiting the communities in Africa. To what extent would students be able to manage the cultural transitions required for some of these experiences, and all of that. Okay, the students from the U.S., students from everywhere would take these courses together. This would be a truly international certificate. And students ultimately receive the certificate from the African University. They take the one class from ECU, this is the part that would take negotiation between the institutions, members of the institutions. We would transfer that class in to the class for domestic students that take the study abroad class for the liability and all of those pieces. That class gets transferred in and counts as one of the 4 classes for their certificate. And then once they've received that certificate, then we have negotiated the processes for transferring those courses back into standard U.S. programs as electives. So that the part on this side, the doing that, the transferring the courses back in, that would I would work that part out with the graduate school. Okay. The benefits of doing it this way, of having Africa University control the certificate, own the certificate, confer the certificate, is it is truly an international certificate, provides financial support for the African University, provides flexibility of the academic credit evolution process. Academic credits and how certificates evolve it's a very bureaucratic process in the United States. So if we could, I think we would have more flexibility if they held the certificate too. By having ECU provide the one class, that ensures the process of providing all the foundational components that are necessary for domestic students from the U.S. to do study abroad experiences. And it has the flexibility of having truly a diverse international group of students embedded within the certificate is better if the African University holds the certificate and confers it, because the cost should be more manageable for people. The challenge with this is that African University ultimately becomes the most responsible, I guess, for the sustainability of the relationship. They would hold the certificate, so that part, there's some weight there, and then the transfer of the international credits back into the students' U.S. programs of studies, that must be worked out. That would be worked out by, would have to be worked out for our institution, and then I'd have to make sure that process that gets worked out for our institution is consistent for most institutions, NECU would ultimately make less money, but our dean supports it. He supports this idea, the concept of it, and he's on board with it. The other thing about it that I was thinking is we've got this opportunity to offer off-model certificates too. So we'd have this one class. This one class could be pretty flexible. Like you'd have a one class study abroad standard domestic course that gets offered to U.S. students, right? But we could also have an off-model one class. They'd have to be separate classes initially. Well, they'd have to be separate classes because of revenues, how the revenue streams would flow, and the cost of the courses. But we could set up an off-model online class for international students that we could set up a number of those. We could have a European class, we could have an Asian class, we could have a class for students from other parts of Africa. There will be this online class that gets offered as their fourth class for the onboarding pre um, cultural immersion experience prep work that could be appropriate and consistent with what the needs are of like countries from students drawn from European partners, or students drawn from Asian partners, students drawn from other African partners, right? So if you have that off-model course, it can be very affordable because it's off-model. What I mean by off-model is off the funding structure model for the university. You can offer an online course that's very, very affordable, and we can set up these separate courses so cultural components could be embedded relevant to each partner, so that we could try to draw students from European partners, Asian partners, and other African partners to participate in the certificate. So we would truly have a very, very international certificate, right? And it would be, the cost structures would match what people are able to pay. But having the one course embedded at ECU, the study abroad type course, will cover the liability components, and the funding model would be what domestic students are familiar with anyway, right? And it would help for some of the basic cost of getting there. Like those costs get built into the tuition, so students are able to get financial aid for the experience. They wouldn't be able to get that otherwise. Like you can't get financial aid to cover your flight if your flight's listed separately, but if your flight is part of the study abroad experience, sometimes students are able to get financial aid to cover part of that. So having one standard study abroad course that gets transferred into the overall certificate that African University owns, I think that structure would work really well. And thing for right now, so this is an idea, right? Look, this is all an idea. There's a lot of ways we can go, and maybe you're not interested in partnering with us. I understand that too. But my dean's in, and we have the educational leadership program. They already have an online off-model process that's been approved by the university to offer ed leadership courses, this degree, to international teachers in Bangkok, right? Teachers at international schools in Bangkok. They already have that in place. And so what we are proposing to do, if you think that this process could work, if you think this process could be supported by African University, what we're proposing to do is that I would do some more work on this end to structure out some basic framework of like how the classes and stuff partnership could look. Then we'd like to visit Africa with you all if it's possible. We'd like to. We're proposing to take 3 representatives from Ed Leadership, 2 from my department, and our dean, to go and to visit the university in Africa, meet with Jackie and her team, set up whatever meetings you think would be helpful to facilitate the process, and to try to get this process laid out and in place to so it could happen. Anyway, this is just an idea, and like I said, maybe you don't want to partner with us, and if you don't, that I understand that. But our dean is really interested in this. Ed leadership and counselor education. We both have interest in this area that we've been trying to develop, and we're willing to put in the work here. So anyway, that's where we are. It's just an idea, and I hope I will get to talk to you about it soon. Thank you.